Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video, and in this one I'm going to be explaining exactly how sniping actually works in Battlefield 6. I think most people know that some sort of sweet spot mechanic is incorporated into the game that allows you to get a one-shot kill without hitting somebody in the head, but how does that work exactly? Where do you have to shoot people on the body? What are the ranges? Does it differ between the different sniper rifles? I was quite shocked with the findings, so I wanted to share it with all of you here in the video as well. I think you will learn a thing or two. If you guys enjoy the content here on the channel, hit the sub button, hit the like button as well. That should help you to keep up to date with everything around Battlefield 6. And as always, thank you guys so much for the support here. Okay, so first things first, what is the sweet spot? Well, to explain this, I'm going to show you guys some stats here, and shout out to Sorrow, all of these stats come from his spreadsheet. But this is a good example of a weapon that doesn't have a sweet spot mechanic. So here we've got the M433, this is a starting assault rifle, and as you can see by the damage table here, there are only really two different ways that you can hit people. You can hit people in the body, or you can hit them in the head. And if you hit them in the head, you will get a damage multiplier. In this case, it's 1.34 times, and if you've got the hollow point ammunition, it's going to be 1.5 times. Sniper rifles, and this is the only kind of weapon in the game that has this, not even DMRs, they have a third zone. So they've got the headshot, of course, but then they have body shots, but then they also have the sweet spot, which is actually the upper torso. Now the question is, where exactly in the upper torso or the neck area do you have to hit people to activate this sweet spot? Well, here we are with the starting sniper rifle, the M2010, and as you guys can tell, if I hit this guy in the chest, we do 64 damage. If you move up to the neck area, now you're dealing 80 damage. So that is the general sweet spot area, but it actually goes down a lot lower than people think, like right about there, where the 8 zone meets the 7 zone, maybe even a little bit lower than that. That is also the sweet spot area. So whilst a lot of people think you have to aim for the neck, it actually goes down to, I would say, where the top of the rib cages start. Of course, it's going to be very difficult to ascertain that in a round, but just know if you're aiming at the head and this sort of area, even these little 6 areas here, the collarbones, that is also going to do the extra damage. However, what you might not know is if you come out here to the shoulder, that is also the sweet spot there. So even though it doesn't have any internal organs or anything like that, it's basically just how high you do go up. However, if you do go all the way to the edge of the shoulder, well, now you're back to 64 damage, and in this situation here, we actually missed that guy entirely, and then it went to 80 there, so it's obviously a little bit sporadic in whether it gives you that sweet spot damage or not, but generally speaking, this whole area is where you're going to be doing the extra damage. Now, with that explained, because I know most of you guys already know about that, what are the actual ranges that you're going to do that extra damage, and like how does it work? Because if we look again at any other weapon in the game, you'll see that the damage model isn't linear, right? Basically, you do a certain amount of damage up into a certain range. In this case, on this weapon, it's 25 damage up to 20 meters, and at 20 meters, it just drops straight down to 20 damage per bullet. And then at 75 meters, it drops again to, it looks like, about 16.7 damage there. And that is how every single weapon works in Battlefield 6 and has worked in past Battlefield games, except for the snipers in Battlefield 6. And so to demonstrate this, if we come back to the M2010 here, if we hit this guy in the neck, we do 80 damage, hit this guy, 80 damage, 80 damage here, 80 damage there. As soon as we come back to this wall and we go for this far target, boom, 100 damage. We have now entered the sweet spot range for this particular weapon. But what you may not know is that the damage fall off, or increase in this particular case, is actually linear. So if we come all the way up to the counter here, now we only did 96 damage. So it doesn't get increased all the way from 80 damage up to 100 damage, just like at 1 meter difference. It slowly increases from the 80 damage of this sweet spot all the way up here. Now you'll see we did 97, and as we back up more and more, and eventually we get far enough away, and you're right in the sweet spot, you're going to be able to one-shot people in the right area of the body there. So there's sort of 2 sweet spots in the game. One of them is where you're actually aiming on the body, and the other one is the ranges that you're at. And this is what it looks like in graph form here for the M2010. So this is in the upper body. You will be doing 80 damage all the way out to 55 meters. And then beyond 55 meters, up to 75 meters, the damage will actually slowly start to increase linearly until you hit 75 meters, at which point you will then be doing 100 damage in the sweet spot there in the upper torso, and that lasts all the way up to 120 meters, at which point the opposite happens. As you get even further away, the damage starts to fall off very slowly all the way up to 160 meters, where it drops down to 62.5 damage. So it's actually going to be doing less damage at 160 meters than it is at 0 meters. So clearly, if you're using this weapon, you preferably want to be staying in the range of 75 to 120 meters. However, this also applies to regular body damage with the sniper rifles. So this one starts off at 64 damage out to 55 meters, then it increases up to 80 damage, stays there again from 75 meters to 120, and then it drops all the way down to 50 damage per hit at 160 meters. Now, those numbers might not matter as much because whether you're doing 64 damage, 80 damage, or 50 damage, it's still going to be a two-shot kill. So what might be the most important to you, of course, is what range can I actually one-shot somebody at in that upper chest area. But it's still worth taking this into consideration, because if you have a target that's maybe taken one round of damage from an assault rifle or pretty much any weapon in the game, because most of them do around 20 damage per shot, that means in that sweet spot range, you're going to be able to one-shot somebody if you hit them in the body and they've taken pretty much any kind of damage at all. Now, I think most people pick their sniper rifles in Battlefield 6, maybe, based on what are the attachments for them, what's the bullet velocity, what is the reload speed, because as we know, you're generally going for headshots, and every sniper rifle in this game is going to headshot somebody, and it's going to be a one-shot kill. So, it mostly comes down to those things. But what you might not be considering is that all of the sniper rifles have different sweet spot ranges. So if we pick up the SV98 here and we come back in and we do the same test again, right? I'm going to hit all these targets in the sweet spot, still doing 80 damage there. You're going to notice that the damage model, by the way, is exactly the same here. Before you're in the sweet spot range, it's still 80 damage. However, as soon as we get to this target, boom, now we're already doing 96 damage. With the other sniper rifle, this one still did 80 damage, and then this guy is going to be a one-shot. If you recall, I had to run all the way up to this wall to get into the sweet spot range for that particular target. And here is the reason why. This is the graph for the M2010 in the upper torso, in the sweet spot. And if we move over to the SV98, you can see that sweet spot range is now from 55 meters to 90. So this is a shorter range sniper rifle. And if you're planning to do some sniping on a map where maybe the engagement distances are a little bit closer, then you will definitely want to make sure that you've leveled up this one as well so that you can rely on it. And again, if we go and look at the actual damage numbers, they're exactly the same, right? You're going to get 80 in the upper torso, then it goes up to 100, drops down to 62.5, and then the body shots, again, you've got 64, 80, and then dropping down to 50. As for the PSR, once again, exactly the same damage model here, but this time the range is much further. Now the sweet spot is from 100 up to 150 meters. So basically, the M2010 is like the mid-range sniper rifle, the SV98 is for closer range, and the PSR is for longer range. So if I was playing something like Operation Firestorm or Mirak Valley, and you're going to be seeing a lot of those long-range engagements, maybe even Blackwell Fields, you probably want to go with the PSR. Now, there is one anomaly weapon in all of this, and it's the new one from Season 1. It's the Mini Scout. And the way this weapon works is rather than having to get to a certain distance to enter the sweet spot, with this weapon you're going to be doing the most damage the closer you are, and it just drops off over time. So here you can see in the torso it does 64 damage up to 20 meters, and then at 20 meters out it slowly declines to 50 damage at 75 meters, where it just levels off and does a 50 damage for the rest of the time then. So once again, if we come into the test range here, let's hit this guy's center torso. You've got 64 damage, 64 damage, 60 damage, 56 over there, and 51. So as you get past this 20 meter guy here, you're going to be doing less damage. So this is really more of an aggressive sniper. However, another weird thing about this gun is that it does have a sweet spot. So if we hit this guy in the chest here, 64 damage, hit him in the neck, it's going to be 80 damage. However, the sweet spot is also in the legs. So I don't know how that works, dice. Like, if I hit this guy in the torso, I get 64 damage, hit him in the legs, and that was 80. I did it a little bit too quickly there, but just to show you guys again, there's 64, and there's 80. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Let's check this guy's arms. 80 in the arms as well. Okay, that's very strange. So basically, what this is telling me is that with this weapon, not only do you want to be up to 20 meters, but you want to be hitting this person anywhere except center mass, which is probably going to be the most common place to be hitting them. So try to avoid, I guess, this area here like the plague. Oh, also, the ball sack down there. Ignore that. Go for the kneecaps, though, and you should be good. Now, I honestly don't know if this is a bug. I'm pretty sure that this sweet spot is only supposed to work in the same area of the body that it does for the other sniper rifles, right? And this is just a bug that it's working in the arms and the legs right now. But that's what is making the Mini Scout particularly powerful. Now, I will say, again, it matters sort of less with this weapon because no matter if you hit them in the sweet spot or the body or the chest or whatever range you're at, this weapon never does 100 damage and it never does less than 50 damage, which means it's a two-shot kill across the board. Obviously, if you hit a headshot at certain ranges, then yes, it's going to be a one-shot kill, so you do still want to aim for those headshots, of course. But in situations where your target has already taken some damage, then it is going to matter where you shoot them. Alright, so with those two things covered, I just want to throw in quickly as well how the rangefinder works. I know most of you guys will know this, but for the few at the back who don't, equipping the rangefinder in Battlefield 6 is really, really powerful. So if you actually come into your infantry and passenger mappings here, come down to rangefinder zeroing if zoomed, you can bind this to your mouse button, to your fire button. I assume you can also do this on the trigger on controller. And what it's going to do then is automatically zero in the range precisely every time you take a shot. So if you click on somebody's head, no matter what the range is, it's going to zero the sniper rifle so that you will always get a kill. Now, I do think this is a bit cheesy. It exists in the game though. Everybody's doing it. So I thought I'd put it in the video, but it does have a pretty big drawback to it. And that can be that if somebody is silhouetted against a hill, if they're on the precipice of a hill, let's say, and they're silhouetted against another hill, if you're trying to hit a lead on a target that is moving, you will actually zero your sight then to the hill behind where you're aiming. That probably means you're going to miss the person. So sometimes it is better to have a regular keybind here and zero in on maybe the ground where the person is standing and then try to hit the moving shot. If you have it set up this way, it's going to work every single time you press fire, so just bear that in mind. And with that said, that is about going to do it for this video, guys. So I hope you learned something new. I certainly did whilst making this video. I did not know that all of the damage models on the sniper rifles were linear like this. I figured they just worked like the rest of the weapons in the game. So that was pretty cool to find out about. If you guys did find this video enjoyable or informative, leaving a like down below is always appreciated. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with everything Battlefield 6. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one.